Welcome to I Drink Your Podcast, where we drink and talk about movies from 2007.
The fourth dimension will collapse upon itself, you stupid bitch.
Shut up, I'm a man and I know what's good for me.
Bountiful penis. Amen.
Boy, my ass is sore.
You can get pink eye from farting in a pillow?
Yeah, but you gotta be bare-assed.
I'm gonna invent a toothbrush for your butthole.
It does the trick.
Paddington Bear.
He's a homewrecker?
Yeah, he wrecks homes.
You are a murderer of love.
I drink your podcast. I drink it up.
Welcome back to another episode of I Drink Your Podcast. With me today is Ben.
Good evening.
And Emily.
Hi, everyone.
And Wesley.
Oh, I did not like that.
No one did, Wesley.
And our special guest this week is Nick from St. Paul Filmcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's going to be exciting to discuss Mr. Brooks. But before we get started, does anyone have anything interesting in their glass?
I have to know what Ben is drinking because he was eating cereal before this and he's like, it's part of my drink. What is it?
I had to prep my drink. So for my drink, I was supposed to soak cereal, my favorite cereal, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, in milk for 10 minutes. But I'm not just going to waste Cinnamon Toast Crunch and then strain it out like the drink told me to. So I ate the cereal, poured my cinnamon milk, and then added Irish whiskey. And it's called the Cereal Killer. Both in honor of this movie and Mr. Brooks just standing by his fridge in the middle of the night drinking tall glasses of milk like a crazy person. So,
well, he is crazy.
That sounds delicious. This has to be one of your tastier drinks. Yeah,
it's really good.
I'm drinking a gin and tonic because I have to imagine that there was a lot of tonic water used to clean up all these murder scenes.
A lot of dabbing for sure.
That was a good effort, Wesley. I'll give you a thumbs up. And for my audience, I have a red thumb because I'm drinking what I call the Thumb Killer. Ooh, I put some red thumbprints on a glass of brandy and some other things, but I used grenadine, Matt, in honor of you.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know. Is that creepy? Is that like I'm going to murder you
It's
vibes?
my drink now. Anything with grenadine is a Matt.
All grenadine.
I'm drinking Gatorade and water in honor of Mr. Brooks going to AA.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Nick, do you have anything interesting?
Well, yeah, I'm drinking. I'm going to drink a Windsor, but I don't put anything in my drink. I do it straight. But just for you guys, I dress it up a little bit. So with my Windsor, I put some Murciano cherries, mauled them up like a murder, and then, really made it look really, really red. So
It's a gruesome Windsor.
Yes.
I love it. That's fantastic.
So I had before we recorded, I had a lot of fun just mashing up the cherries really good. Just stabbing them.
Did you have like your alter ego telling you, yeah, mash those cherries?
Yeah, we love this. Draw the curtains.
I wish I did, but I just had a weird look I had the teacher look from my wife when I'm doing it. So
I think that's a perfect segue. So tell us a little bit about yourself and some of the projects you're working on, like your Filmcast and The Green Way.
So, yeah, I got my own podcast called the St. Paul Filmcast, where I interview filmmakers from the Twin Cities area, and not just like actors or directors. So sometimes I get editors, cinematographers, makeup artists, and anybody who actually on a crew, production producers. Just bring them on and talk about the process of making movies. And sometimes they just want to talk movies. It's a kind of a fun little thing that, interview and have a relaxed, fun atmosphere for it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Do you find that there's a lot of filmmakers within the Twin Cities? Like, do you ever run out of guests?
Oh, no. It's surprisingly, this is here in the Twin Cities, it is a massive amount of people that make movies here. We have a Z-Fest. In fact, I just made my first movie for Z-Fest. It's going to be submitted this year. A short film. So yeah, I will never run out of people that want to come on the show.
Awesome.
And is Z-Fest, that's just a film festival or about films about zombies?
Well, we wish, but it's a company that runs Z Systems. and they promote a film festival. So it's called simply Z Fest.
Cool.
And it's one of the most prestigious ones around the Twin Cities area. So their recommendations are a little conservative. So your film can only be 7 minutes. So if your film is a 7 minutes and 1 second, they get rid of it. I've seen that happen. So it has to be 7 minutes, and then he votes, and there's a lot of big prizes when you win too.
We have a podcast about filmmaking and people that work on films, and then The Green Way. What's that about?
So that's my comic book that I actually started writing that in 2008, and I just finished all of it in 2020. So it's about 270-page comic book. Wow. So it's broken up in 3 different books. And it's available on Indie Planet, indieplanet.com, indie with a Y. And then I have an option of hard copies, but if you're not interested, you can buy digital copies for even $1. So yeah, and it's a pulp noir kind of a black and white kind of a story.
That's awesome. Did you partner with an illustrator, or did you both write and illustrate it?
No, I written it and illustrated. So I'm all behind it. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
T to B, top to bottom.
Yeah, I was like, hey, you guys, we're going to have just like a really fucking great guest upcoming. I had warned them. I was like, Nick is awesome. You guys be ready to just like bask in his glory of amazingness.
Thank you for being on for our show. And as you know, we do everything 2007. So Nick, what were you up to in 2007?
I was in a rock band, a drummer.
No.
Yeah.
What band?
We were called Store Bought Heroes. There was 5 of us. We had 2 females and 3 guys, and I was the drummer. Now, if you want to know what our music sound like, actually, the music for my podcast is from my band.
Oh, nice.
So that's the band's music that I play throughout my podcast and the bumper music. And that's me playing on the drums.
Still together?
No, we kind of dissolved around 2010. In fact, the guitar player and the keyboardist, they got married.
Nice.
And they run the craft brew. They have a craft brewery up in Coon Rapids, Minnesota called Alloy Brewery. So
that's so cool.
I'm sure they're going to listen. Hi, Nick and Katie.
Nice.
We should all get together and hang out at Alloy Brewery when the pandemic's over.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Except Matt, he's in Georgia.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Matt.
Okay. What was your drink again? Oh my God.
I was going to mention in 2007, that's when I turned 30. And the week before I turned 30, this movie was available for rental. And I love murder mysteries. I love serial killers. And I was like, this almost seems like it's my birthday gift to me to watch this.
That's so cool.
Nice. Yeah, I also wonder if you and Ben ran into each other at any shows, because Ben was a bassist.
I was in a band around that time as well.
Highly successful.
Yeah, we definitely did not run into each other.
Okay. Probably not. But, you never know. I don't know. So, Nick, can you tell us what made you fall in love with movies?
Well, when I was a kid, I grew up not having a television at home. We didn't really have a lot of things. So I didn't have a TV. If I really want to watch like Wonder Woman, I'd go to my friend's house. But I didn't have a TV or air conditioning. So what my parents always did, we went to movies or go to the drive-in, and kind of stuck with me. So
nature's air conditioning.
And yeah. So yeah, even in fact, when we got a television, I just kind of still wanted to see movies on television rather than TV shows. And then I used to work at a video store too in my college years. I studied film theory in college, and now I'm 43 and I made my first movie.
Dreams do come true.
And did you go to school in Minnesota as well?
Yes, at the University of Minnesota. Yeah, which has a great film history class. Well, I was in the 90s. I don't know what it's like now, but yeah.
It's really gone downhill.
So, Nick, you love mysteries and serial killers. So I'm assuming there are other movies that like got you into that. What kind of movies or what movies did you see that got you into that?
Oh my God, I'm a Spielberg Lucas kid. So when Star Wars and
yes.
and all that, when I was a kid, when all that, Spielberg ruined my childhood. Same with Lucas. So like E.T.'s and Raiders of the Lost Ark and all that, all that stuff came out, and you just watch it. You just constantly watch it. And I remember we always fast forward the talking parts of Raiders of the Lost Ark and get to the action.
You know, what's really fun is to fast forward through the ghost part, and just watching them struggle and fast forward is fun.
We learned a trick in film school is if you watch the first 20 minutes of a movie and the last 10, you pretty much see the entire movie.
I got to let everybody know that I am going to try that for one of our movies.
Don't tell us when, and we'll catch you.
The other reason I like this movie is because I just like murder mysteries. I like the noirs. I like serial killers. I think the TV show I really liked is Criminal Minds. And so
Yes.
as a kid, I always, when I was at age 11, I would watch Perry Mason reruns. So it's always stick with me. And also, I actually put this up. I got these Post-it notes on my writing table that I grabbed that makes sense to me because these Post-it notes, when I do my stories, one says, make sure your bad guys aren't bad all the time. So that's a reminder. And the 7 reasons why people commit murder.
What? Oh, you will have to share that later. I'm very intrigued.
If you want to know, actually, I wrote the 7 reasons why people commit murder in book 1 of my comic book, too.
Yes. So don't even tell me. I got to read it anyway.
Teaser. I'm sure it'll come up throughout the episode, but Nick, plastic gun to your head. What's your favorite psychological killer or psychological thriller?
I think the best one is Jacob's Ladder, the 1990 horror movie, Jacob's Ladder, which is, is he going crazy or the world's going crazy? I love those kind of stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Plastic gun to your head might be one of the funniest things I've ever heard you say, Matt.
Well, Nick, I'm excited to talk Mr. Brooks with you and the gang. And for those of you that have not listened to the show before, the first half of the podcast will be discussing and reviewing Mr. Brooks. Mr. Brooks and me. In the second half, we'll feature our Battle of Twits, a creative competition this week featuring Wesley against Emily. Our current leaderboards is I'm at 9, Wes is at 5, the guests are at 4, Ben is at 1, and Emily is at 0.
And this is Ben's reward from last week because Ben's like, I don't want to battle this week.
Oh my gosh.
I realized I'd gone 8 weeks in a row and I was like, I need a little break.
Can I tell you guys, stress-free today. I could fuck up a million times and I'm living the high life.
Can I ask how many of you guys, this is your first time seeing it?
It was all of us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Matt, tell us a little bit about it.
This is Mr. Brooks, directed by Bruce Evans, featuring Kevin Costner, Demi Moore, William Hurt, and Dane Cook.
He's back.
They have their dance class tonight. We can just drive by and look at them. And there's no harm in just having a look. No means no, Marshall. Please. Pretty please.
A wealthy and successful man, Mr. Brooks, has an addiction to murdering people, and his evil Jiminy Cricket named Marshall spurs his addiction on. After his last killing, Mr. Brooks realizes he unfortunately left the curtains open, and the next day at work, it is revealed that Mr. Smith saw him and took photos of him, and Mr. Smith makes a deal with Mr. Brooks to take him on his next murder because he loved the thrill of it.
What a setup.
Yeah. So having not seen this movie before and knowing nothing about it except for the title and that it had Dane Cook and Kevin Costner, I had no idea what to expect from the very beginning of this movie. And it took a little bit to finally settle into what kind of the genre is. Because I got just major Hook vibes right from the beginning with them sitting in that banquet. Didn't go that direction, sadly.
I think you had 2 bits of knowledge that I didn't, which were Kevin Costner and Dane Cook. So I knew what the movie was called, and that was it. So starting off the movie with a screen of text saying that the hunger came back to Mr. Brooks, but it never really left. I was like, what the fuck am I about to get into?
I forgot there was the text. Like, I thought it started with the Serenity Prayer, what they say at AA meetings all the time. I thought it started with just hearing that and then hearing this kind of back and forth between Marshall and Mr. Brooks. But it started with that text. I forgot about it.
Yeah, it was that important.
Apparently.
Yeah, my okay, so Act 1, first impressions were, how's this alter ego going to play out? Like, because oftentimes when they film that stuff, you're always like, okay, so can everybody else hear him? Or what are the rules of this world?
Oh, right.
once they set all that up, I started to chug along. It's a little clunky at first with like the dialogue with his wife being like, "Did you see that lady's nipples?" And his daughter sitting on his lap and being like, "I want a job, daddy." But like overall, like getting that world going, I started to buy in, and overall, I think this movie kind of did a really good job for me.
I have to say, when I first rented it, because I'm a kid from the 80s, when you see Kevin Costner actually going to be a bad guy, that's the important. That was the most selling point. Like, really, he's going to be a bad guy in this? Because I'm so used to him being like the American mythos, vanilla superhero, usually in all his movies, and now he's going to be a bad person. And then you have William Hurt is going to kind of be his enabler, his enticer. Was kind of, okay, let's try this. This is going to be either really good or it's going to be really bad.
They took a swing.
And
Right.
I loved their dynamic between the two of them. Okay, don't judge me, everyone. I know who Kevin Costner is, but I have never seen a movie with him in it. I also don't know who William Hurt is. And so I came into this knowing literally nothing about anyone except for Dane Cook and Demi Moore.
Oh my gosh.
The real power hitters of this movie for Emily.
And so I was in love with their back and forth and how they would kind of joke with one each other, but it was really a sadistic, sarcastic, egging on back and forth. But at the same time, it was really, it built the tension for me. I didn't know what was happening, and so I was excited to see what they would do.
Yeah, it was a sick relationship for sure.
I think it comes up in the second act, maybe, but the scene that you just reminded me of was when they're sitting in the car waiting to pick up Mr. Smith, and William Hurt leans over and mentions like, "Hey, if you just honk his horn, maybe he'll run out into the street and get killed, and then we don't have to worry about this." And then they just both look at each other and go,
One of the things I do when I usually write my stories, I do names, and which is actually fascinating because this is a rewatch for me, but I actually pay attention to names. So his last name is Brooks, which is everything everybody knows is a small stream. His first name is Earl, which is kind of like nobility. So he's kind of very classy. He's kind of an upper class person. But then I can research the name Marshall. And actually, even if you do a simple Google search, Marshall, by definition, means effective way to argue and to bring together.
What?
The only thing that I paid attention to with the names was when he was going to the AA meeting and he stood up and said, "Hi, my name is Earl." And I was like, that's a TV show, you jerk.
While we're talking about names, Mr. Smith, Dane Cook's character, his name is actually Graves, is his first name, which, spoiler alert to the end of this movie, but that's where he ends up.
Yeah, so I like that with especially when I'm writing names are very important, and I think a lot of people, especially me, you take time to figure out what's your name of a character.
The attention to names too also extends to the attention that they give to Mr. Brooks, the character, because they really flesh him out with a lot of interesting things that he's about, like he's a box factory millionaire.
Which is so bizarre, and I love it. I loved it. It was so random.
Yeah, I mean, other than being rich, like I don't know if the box factory played into anything that happened within the movie, but I guess everybody's got to make a living. But then he's also like,
sure,
he owns a kiln and is an amateur potter at home.
Well, that's just a cover for murder.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's what
But he had beautiful pottery surrounding him.
It's a good cover.
But he also owns a cemetery, because that's a good way to, invest your money. Own a cemetery. Like he says, it's something that's always going to be in need.
Yes.
And he's a master of disguise, as we saw throughout
Another
the
movie.
But he's just got so much stuff going on, but he's a weird guy.
Definitely.
The part that really threw me off the most was after he shot that initial couple.
Yes.
The shots that they chose to use and the way they edited together his kind of like sexual joy that he got out of killing the people. That was a little much for me. I was a little like, okay, we get it.
I agree with you, Ben. It seemed like such a far cry from his character. I would have liked to see maybe Marshall, having that reaction and holding the gun and to have that little, split personality stuff happening. Because like seeing Kevin Costner act like that, I was like, this is wacky shit right now. Like, I don't know.
I think you need that where this movie, it happens so quickly. and maybe it's just because I absolutely knew nothing about this. So maybe this wasn't as cool if you kind of knew that this was about a serial killer. But like the way he portrayed that made me so convinced that this is why he is a serial killer in like 2 seconds. And I was like, oh, like it was creepy.
Like he gets
and
off on
uncomfortable.
this.
Yeah. But like at the same time, I was like 0 to 60. Got it. This is exactly why this guy does it.
So, Nick, is that one of the 7 reasons that people kill? Is it like sexual gratification?
So one of them I kind of umbrella it as killing for fun.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of other motivations, like for profit, for humiliation, to cover up another crime. But yeah, primarily this is as an excuse to he gets off on it. So it's like psychotic. Yeah. But I do like it. After he commits murder, when I read a lot about killers and do the stories and everything, a lot of killers say after they do it, there's a sense of calm. It's almost like a psychological ejaculation for them, that everything just becomes a relaxation because they've been building it up, and then they do it in a sense of everything's kind of quiet, relaxed, in a sense of orgasmic, which, you know, it looks creepy, but it fits very well to what we know a lot about serial killers. That is almost, they've been building up for years and years and years, and then they do it and they're like, yes.
I was not uncomfortable by Kevin Costner having this sort of orgasmic reaction to murdering 2 people. And maybe it's because I don't have any preconceived notions of Kevin Costner. And I was just like, oh, good acting. You know, I saw this character. He fit a certain box. And then he changed. I didn't even mean for that to happen.
Yeah, right.
I really didn't. And then he revealed this part of him that I wasn't quite sure what he was going to do. Like, obviously there was some sort of, oh, we should do it. We should kill them. We should do this. But it didn't really feel real. And, you know, I started thinking a lot of the movie Split. And so I was trying to figure out, is someone in control? Kind of, Matt, you kind of talked about Marshall. Was he going to shoot them? That was a question that you had. I also kind of was thinking that, is this kind of like a going back and forth where the 2 of them are a split personality? And so I loved the setup. And then it was this huge release of, oh my God, what the fuck is this movie?
Earlier, Nick, you said that, you know, Kevin Costner never gets to play this type of character. And I love that you said that, because he's always the good guy. And I found after that orgasmic moment, he kind of turned into a protagonist for me, you know, like an anti-hero where I'm kind of cheering for him after a certain point. Because as the movie went on, I was like, I want this guy to get away with it. You know, he's killing these people for, you know, quote unquote, a good reason. He's got a plan in place.
Wesley's face.
And then he's got all these there's a lot of spinning plates in this movie where you don't really know what's happening to the end. So I found myself a little confused and also cheering for him by the end.
Yeah, it's hard, especially when you're right, how are you going to actually make sure the audience is going to feel something for a person who's a bad guy? You know, he kills people, but you almost, when you watch, you're like, God, I don't want him to get caught, you know?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, I do like this movie. It's actually, second time around is enjoyable, but there's definitely some deep flaws that I have to recognize with the movie because I don't like any of the subplots.
What about the driver of the pickup? What if we kill him?
Yes. Yes! I've always wanted to fucking kill somebody who fucked with me in traffic.
At the same time, Mr. Brooks' daughter, Jane, comes home from dropping out of college. Prego! And soon after, the Brooks family are visited by detectives investigating a murder at her college. Mr. Brooks realizes that Jane is inflicted with the same addiction as himself and flies to her college to commit a similar murder to provide her with an alibi. While this is happening, Detective Atwood is on the hunt for the thumbprint killer, aka Mr. Brooks, and starts questioning Mr. Smith.
Some of the subplots that are introduced kind of at the end of the first act and in the second act, one of them is the divorce subplot involving Detective Atwood. Nick, I'm believing that that's probably one of the subplots you were talking about that doesn't really work.
It doesn't really work for me. It doesn't really drive. I mean, especially when the title is Mr. Brooks. I want to see more of Marshall and Brooks go together. Let's see about 90% of it. I understand when you're writing that you want to have a full script. You want to explore avenues of subplots. But here, I think you think the main story is going to be a lot quiet, that you have to amp up the subplots. And I don't think that needed to be. I think you need to concentrate more on the entire plot. And that would actually be far more effective.
Right. And I think with this one in particular, with Detective Atwood's divorce, they were trying to flesh out her character in a way that didn't have the character driving. It was a thing that was happening to the character that drove who the character was. And I felt that she herself seemed like a strong, capable female cop, but there could have been so much more to her relationship with the thumbprint killer, because there were some weird things going on where she like jumped in and was like talking to him, like, why did you do that? And where are you doing this? But I felt like they just kind of did that superficially rather than diving into it, and they focused on too many other aspects in this movie.
Coming into this fresh and only knowing that Kevin Costner is the main character in this movie, I've interpreted a lot of these subplots as them trying to make the final solution to what Mr. Brooks's master plan was going to be. And maybe that's not how I was reading it as it was happening, but looking back on it now, I think that all the subplots really were just trying to be different cogs in the way that Mr. Brooks is going to get away with it, or how he's going to move on. Because like the divorce plot, like he has the ex-husband and his lawyer murdered, and what I was assuming was a way to get Atwood on his side, or at least something to be like, hey, I scratched your back, get the fuck off of mine.
Yeah. At the same time, though, Detective Atwood within this movie could be removed completely. Like, I would have been fine with a movie that just focuses on Kevin Costner and Dane Cook's relationship, and like this budding new serial killer kind of being raised on how to kill people by Kevin Costner. That would have been a very interesting movie. It felt like Detective Atwood would just serve as like the chase, or we need a ticking clock. We need something out there that's causing Costner to move in a specific way and to do specific things to get us to where we need to go.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Ben. Like, I think you definitely focused in on the three most interesting relationships, but I think that Atwood could have been a better ticking clock. You know, they were throwing obstacles in her way in pursuing them, in like this divorce, this fucking escaped killer that she put away that seemingly has nothing to do with Mr. Brooks. They abduct her at a certain point where you're just like, why are there two killers? And who's this guy that's going to murder suicide with this, you know, girl who doesn't talk at all? Like, it's just like, if they made that detective just this strong force closing in on Dane Cook's character and Kevin Costner's character, that would force their relationship to be even more heightened versus throwing obstacles in her path.
Yeah, even though I appreciate having an introduction to somebody that's a rival or somebody a threat to Mr. Brooks revealed, like the Detective Atwood, but I don't think it's not written better enough. I don't really regard her as smarter than that she see, right? She's supposed to be smarter than we ever really see there be, right? And I'm just not convinced that she's the greatest detective. I don't see it work, even though people tell everybody that she is.
Oh, like we're told
I think
that,
you're absolutely right, Nick. I think it started down that road where she's like, I'll bet you $100 there's not a vacuum cleaner bag in this vacuum cleaner. And then the guy's like, well, what if they don't have a vacuum? And then she'd be like, he wouldn't kill that person. Like, that was like the start of her being smart, but like that was where it ended, you know?
I got to back Atwood up a little bit. There were a couple lines later in the movie where she's going through the home where that couple is murdered, and she's talking out loud to herself, which I hate as a movie feature. But the first thing she says is, "It's darker tonight than it was the night you killed them. How did you not bump into anything?" Which, how do you know it was darker that night? Like, what do you mean darker at night than another night? But then she continues to go on with like a bunch of other things where she knows the MO of this serial killer. So it's not that she is portrayed as a super cop, but she, I think, is portrayed more as, I've been on this case for so long, I know every move this guy would make.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that. Or maybe like she is working hard.
Yeah.
Rather than she's excellent at her job.
It does remind me a little bit of the character that Ryan Gosling plays in Fracture, because it's that idea of we're constantly told how smart he is and how much of a nemesis he is for Anthony Hopkins, but we're never given actual evidence of that. And I feel like that's kind of the critique of Detective Atwood and the critique in a lot of these thriller movies, because I think the writers come up with these really cool killer ideas and they really fall in love with this killer character. And then they kind of leave the other characters on the back burner and not fully flesh them out or provide them with, equal footing with the main character that they love so much writing about.
That's a good point.
So yeah, even like when I wrote my murder mystery, you kind of have to work backwards. So you have to okay, that's the end. So how do we get there without, tripping up the audience, or the audience catches early? And you have to throw a lot of distractions and I think that's what the writers try to do. Like, he probably worked from the end. How do we get there? And then how about this subplot? Where I think if we just had simple, just Marshall and Mr. Brooks 90% of the time, would be such a powerful movie.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a lot of movies, Nick. I don't know if you've known that about me, but I love the dynamic between like an anti-hero and protagonist. I love that fighting dynamic. I think it's really interesting, and especially when it comes from someone who is usually portrayed as a bad guy. I find villains to be really interesting, more interesting than a normal protagonist. So when I look into a movie like this, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to see the depth of the villain and see how interesting they are. But then they added another subplot, and that was with the daughter, Jane.
I have a lot of problems with that subplot.
Yeah.
Basically, she quits college and there's all this logical stuff that seems to have no place in a psychological thriller. But then it turns out that she's pregnant, and Mr. and Mrs. Brooks quickly convince her to maybe keep the baby because they would take care of it.
Oh my God, that scene. Fuck that scene.
Oh my God, I had
that
so many problems with
scene.
that scene. I know I can't tell you what to do, but
we would love to be grandparents. Oh my God.
Because that's all that matters, is that the kid exists, and not that you have to be going through 9 months of pregnancy and labor and
becoming a mother,
and some baby that isn't the father doesn't even want you around because he's cheating on his wife who already has other kids.
I agree. That scene is so awkward, and it's not the same beat as the introduction where we get her at the office. She's a much more in control, and then you change into all of a sudden she can't help herself, and then the parents dominate her. So, and then how they even filmed it looked weird. It looked like the scene started right when they took the clapboard away, because he comes in the room and they're all standing in their mark, and it looks awkward, and the lines don't really mesh. And it's one of those that we could have just completely cut that out.
Yeah, I feel like it's supposed to add some complexity to Mr. Brooks's character. Like, he's a killer, but he's also pro-life.
Yes. I absolutely was thinking pro-life the whole time. And was that the intention, that someone who takes life is also pro-life?
I would think they were trying to do some kind of contrast to play on it. But if I was the editor, I would just to get rid of it.
That's obviously a huge hurdle, but it wasn't the main story plot with the daughter necessarily. I think the main one that they really wanted to drive home was that murder runs in the family.
There is some truth to that. As a science teacher, I can say that
there's a murder gene.
Well, mental health issues tend to run in
definitely.
families, and this would obviously be considered a mental health issue if he has a penchant for murder.
So there's a great there's a great TED Talk. His name is Jim Fallon, who actually all he does is study psychopathic brains.
I love his late night show.
It's a 7-minute dialogue, and he explains. He goes in a great deal how it's biological, psychological, and all the recipes to make a psychopathic real life killer. And it kind of plays out with Mr. Brooks, all the things that have to happen. If you want to look it up, it's funny. His name is Jim Fallon. He's a doctor, I think, at Cornell.
I just looked at it.
Yeah, it's a great analogy how he scientifically explains, and the genes are sex linked. So that's why a lot of males are more psychotic than females.
What?
Well, then my follow-up question is, Ben.
Yeah?
Would you kill for your daughter?
Would I or have I? What was the question?
I think one answers the other.
I'm sorry, Mr. Smith. I really did want you to kill me. But in case At the last minute, I changed my mind. I returned to your apartment, and I bent the firing pin on your gun.
When Mr. Brooks finally takes Mr. Smith to kill their victims, Mr. Smith pees himself, leaving evidence of his DNA. After the victims are murdered, Mr. Smith pulls a gun on Mr. Brooks in the car, but Mr. Brooks anticipated this and planned for him to kill him, although in an open grave to make him disappear. At the last second, Mr. Brooks betrays Mr. Smith, kills him, and returns home, knowing that Detective Atwood will assume the thumbprint killer was Mr. Smith because of the pee.
I didn't even realize that he was the thumbprint killer or why he was that until after the movie when I looked it up. Like, I feel like they glossed over that so quickly I might have just missed it in the movie. When did they reveal that he was, like, took thumbprints?
It was at the very beginning.
His first kill.
It was when Demi Moore was first investigating the scene, and it's just a quick throwaway where they like, here's the lampshade on the, and he's like, oh, they use their both one male and one female, like, of the victims. Yeah.
Yep, and we never revealed to the public that the thumbprint killer retrieves his own slugs. And then I suppose if you missed that, you're like, oh, why are they trying to kill this thumbprint killer guy? You just don't know who he is.
One of the things I kind of criticize with the movie is we don't have a lot of back history with Mr. Brooks, other than we know that he's married. We don't know when he started killing. We don't know why he's so efficient at it. We know that he has the tools to suppress and how he navigates it, but we don't know when did Marshall become part of this, which I think we should I would like to investigate that more than having all these noisy subplots filtered.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Absolutely. But this movie was meant to be the first of a trilogy. So I think a lot of those beats were probably things they had planned to cover in later movies.
Yep.
I don't know why they didn't go ahead with the later ones. I know Kevin Costner is one of the few actors who's never made a sequel to any of his movies. Just a little fun fact.
I do have a theory. This is not really published, but I think this movie is so similar environment of Dexter that they don't
I'm
really.
Glad you brought that up.
Yeah, of him having a dark passenger, being really hidden serial killer. That I think they weren't going to try to compete with Dexter being so popular. Dexter, the series, season 1 came out a year before this movie.
Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say it was around the same time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Midway through Act 2, I looked up Dexter and I was like, because this was like on that serial killer like craze, it felt like, and possibly a little rushed because, boy, I would have loved to see him dive into his relationship with Marshall a lot more than that discoteca shootout with Atwood and
Meeks.
Meeks. And then he suicides himself and his girlfriend. And it's just like, I'm going to go try to catch the thumbprint killer again. Like, it just, the whole thing just was such a distraction.
Right.
And
that's the
word.
The
way they filmed that hallway, flashing strobe light shootout, I was just like rolling my eyes. It was so bad.
Yeah, I was so upset when all three of them couldn't hit a person 20 feet away in a hallway. But then Demi Moore dives behind a door and bullseyes 7 light bulbs in a row. For what? Like, you can't see in the dark. Like, why was that your instinct? What benefit did that give you over these two people?
Speaking of those lights, I did look it up and they did make it so anytime the actors pulled the trigger, the light would flash. So that's why you had that strobe light effect.
It would have been really funny if Meeks still couldn't hit anybody when he like shot at his girlfriend point blank and he just missed. And then he tried to kill himself, gun to the head, missed.
That final fight between those set of unimportant side stories was disappointing, but quickly followed up by some more grievances I have with a final fight between Mr. Smith and Mr. Brooks, which is where
really
I don't know how smart he really is with his planning of this and that whole convoluted, I'm so smart that I've planned this 5 steps ahead and I was making the choice when to stop at part 3 because that's where I wanted to go. But I more wanted to just up front talk about how fucking stupid it is to attack somebody with a shovel that you intend to kill. Your first shot is a rib shot, and then he
Leg
screams, and then you howl like a wolf. But then his next hit is straight to the dome. And contrary to what I've learned in cartoons, in this movie, it just all it did was make Dane Cook stop screaming. Bullshit. And then the third swing with this weapon shovel is a straight throat cut with a shovel from like...
It was a sharp shovel.
Yeah, sharp shovel from like at least 4 feet away.
What alliteration.
It's a curved blade. Like the amount of math that had to go in to connecting that perfect slice across the throat. And Emily, if that's your math segment, I am so sorry.
No, you're good. Keep going.
But like that kind of makes me think that they intended Mr. Brooks to be that smart. Like that's the only way I can buy that killing blow is believable, is that guy really is that calculated.
I was just riding the train at that point. I was so invested into Mr. Brooks succeeding that I just didn't even care at that point. Anytime he was on screen, I was like, yep, I believe whatever you're going to do is going to happen.
I think that the shovel kill is unintentional and not part of his plan. I think he probably just was planning to shoot him because he did have the gun with him to kill him. I think it was just happenstance and luck that he managed to get that killing swipe with the shovel.
Oh my gosh.
Whatever.
That second gun was not intended for backup to kill Mr. Smith. It was backup in case he actually wanted Mr. Smith to kill him.
It can have dual purposes.
No.
And I don't remember, at that point, was Marshall scared that he was going to die, but Mr. Smith had decided he wanted to live yet? Or how does...
I feel like Marshall was really absent for a lot of that.
Yeah. Once he enters the cemetery, we don't see Marshall again.
Which is unfortunate. I think that's a great opportunity that they missed.
I think they wanted to show the relationship between Mr. Smith and Mr. Brooks and focus on that, give it its full attention at the end to build that tension, because Marshall was gone and we had been so used to Marshall, or at least dependent on him, or Mr. Brooks was. And then basically we saw Marshall wasn't there, so Mr. Brooks did the killing on his own.
Yeah, but Mr. Brooks kind of always was doing the killing. So I think that maybe
was
even...
he, though?
I make that point to say that, like, I feel in that scene, if we had just seen Marshall, like, sitting on a headstone in the background and, like, him not interfering, but just knowing that he isn't, like, completely absent. But, like, this is Mr. Brooks taking full control. Like, I would have liked that.
Mm.
Yeah, his absence is very pronounced. I don't know if they wanted written that finally Mr. Brooks has full control and he's thought everything through. He doesn't need his assistance anymore. But when you remove Marshall, when he's been part of the journey all the time, it seems like, now, where is he? Why do you want to have him? So,
right.
Yeah, I would definitely, I don't know. You have to have, it's all the, where did he go? But it doesn't really flow very well. That's the other thing I have with this is the movie's edited. I don't like the editing of this movie at all.
No, agreed.
Can you say more about that?
Well, when I say editing, I'm not really blaming the editor. Editor only works with what they have. But it doesn't really flow. I mean, the first time that was when she gets served and she's mad at the person and screaming, and she's like, I'm at the scene, and then she screams and we get a cut and it's quiet and you're like, well, where are we going? Why do we have to cut here? So, and there's a lot of that too, of just two unnecessary cuts that just let things flow. And then when we don't have cuts, like I'm going to have my baby speech, I would definitely cut that. So,
yeah.
So like I said, there's a lot of times where they cut, I didn't want to, and where you should, I thought that maybe they didn't.
And you kind of hinted at one of the things that bothered me the most in this movie, and it often happened at those abrupt cuts, but the sound mixing in this movie. I don't know if this is the one that I watched or if you all picked up on this as well, but the drastic volume change between action and dialogue, especially in some of the quieter or like what are supposed to be the more intimate scenes when there's dialogue, it is so quiet. And then when you have the shootouts and the van kidnapping, I couldn't put down my remote because I kept having to change the volume so much because I either couldn't hear the dialogue or I was afraid my neighbors were going to think I was in a shootout. So yeah, there were definitely some issues with this.
I didn't notice that, but I did feel that the shootout and the van scene were so different from the rest of it, where it was jarring to just go from action, action, action. And then suddenly this calm sense of meticulous planning and procedural murder.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep. And I agree that a lot of times, especially when you're a writer and you know that your main plot is going to be quiet and really a character driven, and you think that's just going to have to amp up the action, you're going to have to amp up the subplots, and that doesn't really work here.
I also want to talk real quick about one of my least favorite lines in the movie, which is when right before Mr. Brooks drops the phone off of the building after semi-confessing to Atwood, he just wants to know, why did she become a police officer? You have all that money, because that's the only reason people do anything in this country is money. But then she goes, well, you promised me, you have to tell me where you are. And his response is, me? I'm on top of a building. That was the coolest, dumbest line I've ever heard. The fact that he got away with it, got somebody else accused of all of his murders, then still has the gall to call the person who was investigating him, basically letting her know, like, you didn't catch me. Why would anybody do that? Am I the only one that has a problem with that?
No, and that's why I don't think Mr. Brooks is as smart as he thinks he is, because that's such a huge thing and mistake to make. Like, I don't understand a character reason other than we want this to be a trilogy.
Yeah.
Like that seems like it.
The whole way they treated that at the end just felt really unfaithful to the entire character development that we did have from Mr. Brooks.
Well, speaking of feeling unfaithful to what came before it, when that false ending happened and she killed him, I was scanning my brain trying to figure out what did I miss in this movie that would even lead me to think that was a possibility of something happening. And apparently that ending was the original planned ending, but it tested so poorly that they added in that it's a dream sequence, like after the fact.
They did mention, I'm pretty sure it was Marshall who says it to him once he has the realization that she's also a murderer. Marshall does say to Mr. Brooks, she's probably going to try to kill you. So it was alluded to earlier in the movie.
Yes, although they didn't show Jane as any sort of murderer or any sort of... There was nothing there, and maybe, I don't know, it just... I liked the false ending. I was like, oh, yes, he didn't get away with shit. Yes, I like this. I'm feeling conflicted. But I still did like that it was a dream sequence and he woke up and there was still that tension. So I don't know. Either way, I was fine with it. I was ready to ride the train and just enjoy the movie for what it is.
I rode the train up until that scene and I was like, fuck you.
Wesley, you got some observations for us?
These are just a few of our incredible thoughts.
That might be the best fake orgasm I've ever seen in a Hollywood movie, and I'm not talking about the sex scene.
Nice.
I really liked how they cut from Demi being thrown from a moving van into a car windshield, and the next scene is just the facade of a Rite Aid, as if Demi had just been thrown into a car and just needed to get a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
And then the quote, even if that guy was charming and funny, I still wouldn't like him, said every Dane Cook hater in the early 2000s.
Ben, you got a game for us, right?
Okay! Game on! Game on! Game on!
I do. This week's game is called The Field of Costner Dream Rolls. So Matt is going to play this week. So Matt, are you ready?
I'm ready, but how does this game work, Ben?
Absolutely. So when you act as long as Costner has, you'll inevitably be considered for or offered many famous roles. So I'm going to give you a role that Kevin Costner almost played, and you need to tell me if I think that movie would be better or worse with Kevin Costner in it.
Okay.
So, and these movies are going to go in chronological order, so don't try to figure out any pattern or anything, okay?
And he's replacing the
I'm going to tell you
actor.
the movie and the actor he would replace in that movie. And you just tell me, would it be better or worse with Kevin Costner?
Okay. All right, I'm ready.
And away we go. War Games, the Matthew Broderick role.
Worse.
Correct. Raising Arizona, the Nicolas Cage role.
Worse.
Correct. Big, the Tom Hanks role.
Better.
Incorrect. Shawshank Redemption, the Tim Robbins role.
Better.
Incorrect. Air Force One, the Harrison Ford role.
Definitely better.
Incorrect. Armageddon, the Bruce Willis role.
Better?
Incorrect. No. Matrix, the Keanu Reeves role.
Worse.
Absolutely. American Beauty, the Kevin Spacey role.
Worse.
No! Fucking pause the timer. Fucking Kevin Spacey.
Keep going.
Oh my God.
I sensed a pattern.
Kill Bill, the David Carradine role.
Better.
Incorrect. Lady in the Water, the Paul Giamatti role.
Better.
Incorrect. He does not win, folks. That was terrible.
Hey, Matt, join the
You got
team
three.
non-winners.
You gave me 7 worses in a row.
It was chronological. I had nothing to do with that.
All right. Well.
Emily, you got any math for us?
Math is a really cool thing. So get off your ass, let's do some math. Math.
I do. And we're going to take it back to some old school math. Here's a little math that Matt will understand. We're going to go back into our counting days from Sesame Street, everyone. So I am the count. Greetings, class. Welcome to the counting school. Did you know you can count lots of different things? Let's count the gunshots and see how many times it takes for Detective Atwood to not get shot at all. So remember, there are 3 sections to the shootout scene between Detective Atwood and Meeks. The first section in the hallway, the second section in the hallway with the lights flashing, and the third section in the stairwell. 3 sections. 3. So in our first section, there were 24. 24 shots, and Detective Atwood does not get shot. In our
Diminishing
second
returns.
section, 28. Wow, 28. And the third section, including the double suicide murder, 8. The great number 8. Matt, will you count with me to 8? 1,
2, 3. Are we doing this? 4. Okay.
Halfway home. Keep going.
5, 6, 7, 8.
8. For a total of how many shots, everyone?
60.
60. Good work, everyone.
Matt, summarize this movie for us real quick.
Let's see it pop up. Pop it up. That's not it at all.
A serial killer tries not to, while all the other characters around him actively try to out-crazy him.
Okay. You say so. And Nick, how about your review and rating for this movie?
So overall, I give it a mild recommendation. I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's great. It's deeply flawed. There's some areas that really work well. So I'm going to give it like out of a 10, kind of like a 6.5.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. I was feeling similar.
It feels like one of those movies where 5 years down the line, you're like, is that a movie I watched? Like it just feels very forgettable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the things when I critique movies, especially with my friend Kyle, is 2 things. Is it unforgettable or memorable? And this is definitely not memorable, and it's definitely forgettable. So
going into this week's Battle of Twits, we've got Wesley versus Emily. And Wesley, I need you to roll a die. Emily will be odd. Wesley will be even.
Yes.
It was a 2.
Okay, so Wesley, you get first choice for this Wesley's Random Question by Ben. So here are your 6 choices. You either need to take Rapunzel, Elsa, Belle, Jasmine, Tiana, or Merida. Because I can't get over that we're done with Disney month. It hurts me deeply.
I don't know these princesses very well.
What is wrong with you?
Yeah, holy shit, Wes.
Jasmine.
Okay. Emily, which one do you want?
She wanted Jasmine.
I did want Jasmine. I think I'm going to have to go with Belle because the other ones are all too strong-willed.
Okay. And now it's time to play Battle of the Serial Killer Inner Voices. I will pose 3 rounds of murderous questions to our less than posable corpses to find out who is best equipped to talk their child out of an abortion.
Oh my God, Ben.
The Mr. Brooks of each round will receive 1 home kill to destroy evidence, and the Mr. Smith will have to sit in their pee pants for the rest of the night. I will be most appeased by the outside the box factory answers.
Oh,
thank you.
That was the worst.
That was planned.
Gotta slip a dad joke in there. There we go.
See, that was planned versus mine wasn't.
So, gravediggers who show up to work the next day and stumble upon a lot of blood near an open grave, but don't question it or bring it up to anyone else. Are you ready?
So
always. You don't ask questions at the graveyard.
So, question 1. Between the thumbprint killer and the hangman killer, we got some interesting but a little bit on the nose serial killer names in this movie. So, your opponent is going to give you a serial killer name, and you must explain to us how they got that name. So Emily's going to go first. So Wesley, what is the serial killer name you are giving to Emily?
The Double Dutch Diddler.
The Double Dutch Diddler. Okay, so Emily, you've got 1 minute.
I'm so sorry, you guys.
Emily writes her answer. Nick, what is something that you have been watching recently?
I actually just rented Barb and Star, go to Vista Del Mar.
How is it?
Oh my God, it's fun.
It looks super fun.
What is this now?
It's called Barb and Star, go to Vista Del Mar. It's dynamite. I loved it.
It's a new, it's Kristen Wiig and Annie Mumolo who did Bridesmaids together. They wrote it together. And you want to kind of just give us a little like quick plot summary of what it's about?
They're just two women in their 40s that pretty much stay together, and their life is fall apart because they lose their jobs. And kind of how they describe it, they get a soul douche by going vacationing. And they go to Vista Del Mar, and then trouble ensues.
And it gets a recommendation?
Oh, yeah. I watched this, and then about 30 minutes in, I looked at my wife and I go, there's going to be a part 2.
Yep, your soul pH has to be at the right level for sure.
That's right.
But it's so whimsical. It's so fun. It's so refreshing. There's a lot of awkwardness to the jokes and everything, and it's ridiculously fun.
Well, thank you, Nick. Emily, are you ready? You were given the Double Dutch Diddler.
Yeah. So, the Double Dutch Diddler. This serial killer is actually a little girl in pigtails. And she uses jump ropes to not only strangle her victims, but also to shimmy up and down the barns that she goes to. Because she only kills farmers. And every time she does this, she does it at night. And so she actually ends up shimmying up the jump rope to go over the moon. Her victims are always very cruel to cats and violin players. Her calling card is a spoon that has a little bit of some blood from her victim that she likes to scoop out of her victim. So I give you the Double Dutch Diddler.
So what would be like her regular job?
Oh, her regular job? She's in elementary school.
Okay.
This is Emily.
I really picture... No, I really picture this as Ellie. Sorry, Ben.
Oh. Well, that's not far off. Does she leave behind the jump ropes? Like, how do they know that she's a Double Dutch Diddler?
It's because it's embedded in the victim's necks. They can tell the pattern is a very famous jump rope pattern.
Oh, it's those hard little plastic tubes that are around there, then the links. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so that's how they're able to tell, is like they can see the different marks.
So they know it's a child, or they know it's a jump roper?
They don't know it's a child. They know it's a jump roper. But they know that this person always attacks farmers that are cruel to cats and violin players. And they know that this killer always attacks at night when it's a full moon.
Emily, you said her calling card is a spoon. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that spoon and where it might be left?
So this killer likes to just dig out some skin until she's able to get some blood in the spoon. And then she puts it inside the victim's mouth just to have them eat their own demise.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm going to a dark place, you guys.
So it's not a plastic spoon, right?
Oh, no, it definitely is a plastic spoon. She really has to dig.
She's a child. She can't afford silverware.
Exactly.
Mr. Brooks was really meticulous in like his research. How does she find out that these farmers are cruel to cats and fiddlers?
Oh, that is an excellent question, Ben.
Thank you.
She learns so much in her elementary school. She learns so much. Her elementary school is literally called the Cruel Farmers.
The Cruel Farmers? The name of her elementary. I got to write that down.
Okay.
The Cruel Farmers.
I think that's going to be brought up at the next meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Emily. Great answer. Emily, what serial killer name are you going to give Wesley?
The Kidney Bean Stalker.
Nick, are there any other projects you're working on that you'd like to plug?
Oh my God, I've written it down. So not only do I have my comic book, The Greenway, out available, and I did a short film cycle for Z-Fest. I also on YouTube. So if anybody wants to know what it looked like, I'm on YouTube. It's called Kyle Nick on Film. So it's once a week. We pick a movie. We kind of just spitball it. Right now, we just finished a whole block of Brian De Palma films that are probably going to come out in April. So about 8 or 9 Brian De Palma films.
Don't know who that is.
Well, that's why you got to watch the channel.
Okay, perfect. I love it.
Yeah. And then I'm launching my comic book company. It's called Parapet Comics. And my friend Wes Johnson wrote a script called Mercenary Kingdom. If you want to know what Mercenary Kingdom is, the short film is on YouTube. So if you look up Mercenary Kingdom, and we're going to try to do an offshoot of that short film with a comic book called Mercenary Kingdom City of Fire. So I'm working on the pages right now. And hopefully Parapet Comics #1, Mercenary Kingdom, comes out this summer.
God damn it, Nick, you're so cool.
Yeah, you've got your hands in so many different things. That's awesome.
But get ready, this is not done yet. I'm actually finishing doing storyboards for my friend Matt Eckham. So it's called Out of the Network. If you want to know any of that, follow me on Instagram. I'm on Instagram, Nick Polatichuk, if you can find me, and I put up some pictures of the storyboards up on there. So,
wow.
Yes, it's nice to be busy, doesn't it?
Well, thank you, Nick.
Yeah.
Wesley, you were given the Kidney Bean Stalker.
I mean, I can't believe you gave me such a notorious murderer. Known for her infamous fart smell left residing inside the tiny grocery bag left over the victims' heads as they suffocate, scientists have been able to analyze the specific bad smell molecules, and that's scientific terms, to determine that the murderer had only eaten an entirely kidney bean-based diet. She is suspected to have followed her potential future victims because they had taken the final kidney bean from her local small vegan grocery store. But she only kills those who also buy meat.
So they buy meat and they took the last kidney bean.
Yeah, I'm pretty much asking for it.
If they took the last bean but don't eat meat, safe?
Yep, they're good. They're regular vegans.
So how often does she hang out at this grocery store?
Only so whenever she goes, she buys 20 at a time. She's also very specific about how much she has to have in stock. So it could be somebody that buys the last one, meaning the 19th can. So it doesn't have to be like the last one. It has to be the one that drops the stock of the store below 20.
Oh.
Yeah, so she's only going every once in a while, but because kidney beans it's such a small grocery store that they have a limited stock, if they don't have her required amount, that person gonna get it.
Yeah.
They're gonna get a fart bag over the head until they die.
I like how we have two people who are strangling.
Mine's suffocation, not strangling.
Suffocation, yeah. Completely different, Matt.
This reminds me of a prank I used to do with my friends in high school in the early 90s, where we would fart in Pringle cans and then offer them to our friends.
This might be one of your friends from high school, Nick.
It's one Pringle cans preserve farts forever. And the trick is you got to leave a little bit of Pringles left. So when they shake them, like, all right, you want the rest? And they open it and it's like a shock.
Wow.
Wesley, they know it's a female based on her farts?
Yeah.
Will they have that kind of DNA technology?
Yeah, you know how you can get pink eye from farting on somebody's pillow?
Yeah. Can you tell if it's a male or female who farted on that pillow?
Oh, yeah. Obviously, you're not a DNA scientist.
Clearly not. Great answer, Wesley. Question 2. We called Marshall an evil Jiminy Cricket, and a super convincing one at that, but Mr. Brooks didn't seem that tough to convince. So if you were the devil on the shoulder of a random character, what would you say to convince them to do something of your choosing? And we're going to start with Wesley. who chose Jasmine from Aladdin.
It's your boy, Raja. My princess. The riffraff. The street rat. You're royalty, my darling. You can do so much better. Sure, he's got that flying rug, but you know that my classic running around thing, I'm probably just going to slip on it and break my little claw. He's cute and all, but a monkey? You know I love banana marinated meat. If you want me to curl up in your lap ever again, I do insist that you dump the zero, find yourself a nice prince who has a lion, and let's fuck with this evolution shit.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. So Raj is a tiger and wants to fuck a lion.
He has grandiose dreams of creating ligers.
That makes
As
so
they
much
all
sense.
do. Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, he's Princess Jasmine's pet. Like, he's got to have big dreams.
Definitely.
What about what you're saying to Jasmine would convince Jasmine to do what Raj is saying?
Her love for Raja has been growing for years. And Aladdin is new, and she understands the fleeting spirit of love, and also trusts that she doesn't want Raja to ever be hurt. And if that means that he has the potential to injure himself, oh God, no. Like, I don't care how cute this guy is or what bread he gave to those homeless kids. Also, she just loves animals, and Apu doesn't deserve to be eaten by Raja. And I just, from my own personal opinion, I don't see how Raja doesn't eat Apu.
I'm pretty sure his name is Abu.
Abu.
That's okay, though. Yeah.
Damn it.
Okay. Well, thank you, Wesley. And now we go to Emily, who chose Belle from Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, and I went a different direction than Wesley. I am not assuming the role of a tiger. I am assuming the role of Emily, similar to how Marshall is Mr. Brooks's alter ego. Belle, did you hear? The village has been folding pages of books and not returning them to the bookstore on time. And when the books are returned, they have greasy fingerprints and stains all over them. Broken bindings, torn pages. They're monsters. We need to punish them, destroy them. They don't understand you. They despise your brilliance. They despise books and treat them terribly. We have to protect the books. Use your father's brilliant contraption. They think he's insane anyway. Just set the invention on them to protect the books. Just chop, chop, chop. You know, Belle, come on. It's the only way. You know that Chip would help you. You can blame it on him. He's just a stupid cup kid. Then we can have all the books to ourselves. No Gaston, no stupid ass villagers, and just read forever curled up in a world of fantasy. And then I have cue manic giggle from both of us.
Why, Emily, do you want Belle to do this?
Because did you see the books that are in not only the bookstore, but also the Beast's castle? There are books everywhere. I'm a fucking book vampire. I just want to devour all of them all the time. Give me the books now. Okay. They're hurting the books. They're hurting the books, Ben.
Someone think about the books.
Well, great answer, Emily.
I thought it was.
Yeah. It was. They were both good answers. I just have no follow-up questions. I can't. You guys created such a vivid picture for us.
Such a rich tapestry.
So we'll move on to question 3. So in Mr. Brooks, at the very end, we find out that this last scene involving his daughter killing him was a part of a dream sequence that he was having. So I thought it would be fun if you took the ending to a movie of your choosing and turned it into a dream sequence and tell us why that makes the movie better. So you're improving a movie by changing the ending to a dream sequence. And we're going to start with Emily.
Imagine, if you will, Dorothy clicking her heels 3 times and saying, "There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home." Mumbling in her sleep, she wakes up and she's confused but happy to be home with her family and friends. However, as we fade to black and the music suddenly swells to give us the credits, there's a dissonant chord lingering, growing louder and louder, and we suddenly see Dorothy in full Technicolor back in Oz. gasping awake, shaking and trembling in a cold sweat, looking around to see her ruby slippers still perfectly sparkling and secure on her feet. Dorothy breathes a sigh of relief, rolls over, and looks at the black hat perched on her bed frame. There is a slight smile that grows into something twisted as she closes her eyes. The camera pulls back. We see a pink glittering crown on her head. We see a beautiful fur rug next to Dorothy's bed. The camera continues to pull back through a window, revealing the Wicked Witch of the West Castle and two strange figures below, one frozen in place. Oil! Oil! He says, and one staked in place, desperately crying out while scaring away the crows. Lightning strikes in Oz, and we fade to black.
How does that make the movie better?
Oh, it's way more interesting. First off, The Wizard of Oz is not a kid's movie. It is not. The book, yes, definitely kid's movie. The movie, it is fucking terrifying. Everything about it is very bizarre and weird and twisted. And so we might as well make the ending a little twisted as well.
Okay, well, thank you, Emily, for that creative Wizard of Oz answer. Let's go to Wesley. Wesley, what movie did you pick and why is it better with your change?
About halfway through Emily's answer, I thought we were doing the same movie, but it turns out we're okay because I picked Captain Ron.
Okay.
Fade to black as the family rides away as a blissful family unit. And then a loud marimba melody shocks Ron awake, and we see just one eyelid open to reveal a glassy 1,000-yard stare. Quickly, Ron pulls his eye patch over to cover his glass eye, and the camera pans up to his real eye that is darting all around the room while he searches for the Harvey family: Martin, Catherine, Carolyn, and Benjamin. Ron dedicated his life to fixing their family bonding problems all in one quick vacation to sell their family's boat. As he rubs the sleep from his eye, he sits up in his beach hammock tied between two palm trees. Ron slowly starts to have a devastating feeling that maybe the Harvey family wasn't even real. No, but they fought gorillas together, not the animals, the members of a small independent group taking a part in irregular fighting, typically against larger regular forces. But wait, if they were real, how did a man with such a loving family have so many internal struggles? Is that because those are the kind of struggles that people in the quote-unquote corpo world have to struggle with every day? Suddenly, Ron sees a beautiful topless woman waiting just off the coast, waving and beckoning him to come make sweet, sweet love. Ron looks down the camera, gives his classic smirk head tilt, and he puts on his sunglasses and runs off into the sunrise. This is a better movie because for Ron, this was actually a nightmare, and the audience knows that to truly live a blissful life, that money is a construct for depression and is designed to keep humans from achieving their true nirvana. So I hope you all have seen Captain Ron.
It's been a long time.
Long time ago.
Long time ago.
So which part of your movie is a dream sequence? Like, which part of the Captain Ron we know that movie is a dream sequence?
The time that he is the captain of the Harvey's boat.
Which is like 2/3 to 3/4 of the movie, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay.
Wesley did a pretty good strategy of taking a movie that's rated 23 on Rotten Tomatoes and saying it was all a dream.
Oh, it's that high?
Okay, so that was a tough endeavor for the three of us to have to try to wade through. Thank you for your creative and good answers. It is appreciated and more fun when these are good answers, right, Wesley?
I'm suspicious. I don't think you think they were good answers.
Well, you're wrong. So
okay, but I'll be wrong about that one. That's fine.
Yeah.
I gotta know, Nick, did you have a fun time?
Oh God, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for question 1, the opponent's choice question, you each got a serial killer name from your opponent, and you had to tell us how they got their name. Emily, you had the double Dutch diddler. Emily, I thought it was a really clever theme, even though it was a little over Matt's head right off the bat. The calling card was a nice touch because, as all serial killers tend to have some way that they're identified. And it was nice that it was clear who the killer was while it was still like a mystery. Like we got a good sense of who your character was without just it being flat out told, like, this is exactly who this person is. So that was nice.
Okay.
Wesley, You had the kidney bean stalker. Fart jokes are always funny. Thank you for leaning heavily into that.
Yes.
That is appreciated.
Yes.
I really liked the pickiness of your killer, that it's like, yes, it's kidney beans, but also they have to buy meat. Like, I liked that little twist on it, that it's like not just killing at random. But this one's going to go to Emily, because I just think Emily's created a better sense. And I thought going a different direction with the word diddler and playing on that was a really smart move. So
Absolutely.
that one's going to go to Emily.
Great job, Wesley.
Thank you.
Question 2 was write a monologue where you convince your random movie character to do something of your choosing. Wesley, you had Jasmine, and you took on the persona of the voice of Raja, which I thought was a really smart move to use an in-universe character.
Yes.
And you came out real hot with It's Your Boy Raja, which I really loved that start us off. It really told me where we were going to kind of go with that.
And the purring.
And the purring, absolutely. Yeah. And Emily, you had Belle from Beauty and the Beast, and I liked that you really attempted to tap into the things that character loves, which is books, like even more than any person. Like you're really trying to get at her love of that specific thing. And you had personal stakes in it as well, because you want to read those books too. So I thought that was a really interesting way of going about it.
Yep.
But in the end, I think, Emily, you almost went too big with it. Killing an entire village is a lot harder to convince someone to do than dump like a new boyfriend. So I think that too bigness made it really hard for me to feel like Belle would be convinced to murder everyone she knows just to read some books.
It's fair.
Which brings us to question 3, which was make the ending to a movie of your choosing into a dream sequence and explain why it's better. Emily, you gave us The Wizard of Oz, and you talked about how Dorothy actually never left Oz, and she's actually like this evil force in Oz where she's in charge now and living in the Wicked Witch's castle. I really liked your reasoning for why it was better, even though I completely disagree with you that Wizard of Oz is not a kid's movie. I don't agree with that at all.
That's fine.
But I thought it was an interesting take on it. And Wesley, you had a really fun and clever idea, and it probably would make your movie better. But being better than Captain Ron is not a high bar to clear. So I can't just give it to you because of that. And what it came down to is that the twist that I most want to see, and that I think would be a really fun thing to actually see on screen, was the Wizard of Oz twist. Because I do think that that's something that is possible and plausible. And Matt even said it's almost like a Tim Burton twist to the story, which I agreed with. So Emily takes that last point, and we can probably chalk that up also a little bit to just not knowing Captain Ron well enough.
Sorry,
I've got
Wes.
it on DVD. I'll ship it your way.
Ship it your way.
You'll go back and listen to my answers, and you'll be like, "Oh, every single one of these beats in this answer is directly from this movie, and it is brilliant." But I'll accept that.
I'm gonna have to watch Captain Ron now. It sounds intriguing.
Oh my god! Add it to the list, Emily.
Emily won that one 2-1. Well done, both of you.
Very nice, Emily.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you guys for judging. I know it's hard.
Nick, thank you for being on. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You're the best. And if you want to just go over your plugs one more time and
how people can follow you and whatnot.
Yeah. So my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, you can find it on wherever you find podcasts. And if you want to check out the YouTube channel, Kyle and Nick on Film, and see what it looked like, and we review movies, and Emily, maybe some movies that you haven't seen yet. So yeah. And you can follow me on I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram, and the shows are too. So you can find me there.
Awesome.
I have to say thank you guys. I had a blast. This is a lot of fun. I love talking movies. Drinking and talking movies is one of my favorite things to do.
It's exciting for us too to have a local podcaster on. We've been pulling in podcast guests from all over the country, but to have someone in our own backyard was just a really cool, unique experience. So thanks again for being on.
It's really fun.
If you're still listening, go ahead and subscribe, rate, share us with a friend, and follow us on social media at IDYP_podcast. We have stuff on Twitter and Instagram, and we appreciate everybody's support helping us be shared and grown. Ben, what's our next movie we have for next week?
It's a big one next week, guys. We are finally doing No Country for Old Men, the Best Picture winner of 2007. So put your film analysis hats on because we're going to get deep with that one. And we'll be having on Emily's friend, Cole, who will hopefully be our friend after next week as well.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll see.
Ooh.
Guess what, you guys?
Hmm.
I haven't seen this movie.
Oh, wow. You're going to have a blast.
I don't know if she's going to like it.
Really?
But Emily, do you prefer books?
Oh, I love books. Did you not hear my bell answer?
You would actually, I would think you would like the book better than the movie. The way it's written, the style.
So maybe I need to read it before I even watch the movie. I can do it. I'm a fast reader.
And Cormac McCarthy, like, even though he reads, his books are like 120 or maybe 150 pages, it's like climbing Mount Everest. It is so like articulate. Like, I think if you read it, it's just sometimes just reading that book, even though the movie's phenomenal, but the book is just a fantastic journey.
I'll take a chance on it. I'm excited. Thanks again, Nick. We're really happy that you
well,
could
thank
be here.
you guys. This is a lot of fun.
We'll see you all next week.
Next time.
Bye,
Yay.
everybody.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.